Colorado is a semi-arid state with the majority of its water coming from winter snowfall in the Rocky Mountains and spring melt into streams and rivers. This water is used for much more than drinking. It's the reason most of us live here. If the streams run dry, we will lose things that we hold valuable. The Continental Divide forms a natural drainage barrier through North America. Water from the west side flows to the Pacific Ocean, while water from the east side flows towards the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic. At least it used to be that way. Transmountain diversions have moved the water from west to east. There are currently over 24 water diversions through the Colorado's Continental Divide, ranging from simple canals to major tunnels burrowed under the mountains. Most of Colorado's population lives to the east of the Rocky Mountains, but most of the water naturally flows to the west. Transmountain diversions were built to overcome this barrier to development of the Denver metropolitan area. Most of the diverted water comes from the upper Colorado River drainage. Over half of its native flow, about 500,000 acre-feet, is diverted. As the population of the Front Range grows, these diversion structures will take even more water from the western slope, causing negative impacts to the state's major recreation areas. Impacts include loss of rafting and boating opportunities, reduced fisheries, limitations on snowmaking for ski areas, lower reservoir levels, and impacts to the natural aquatic environment.
We hear of the 400,000 acre-feet that's leaving Colorado every year, but we here in Grand County at the headwaters have a hard time thinking that we can capture it and do anything about that Colorado water that might be leaving Colorado because of the small amounts that we're already down to in our streams. We hear of the millions of people that will be moving to the Front Range in the next 10 years. And we're saying we've gotten about as much diversion as you can get out of Grand County. We'll have a hard time finding additional water to come up to meet those demands.
Most of the Headwaters economy is based on tourism, and the main reason people come here is directly related to water. In fact, tourism is the state's #1 industry.
Not only do the high country communities rely on the water resource for domestic use, we also depend upon those water levels for recreation. The town considers the Frisco Bay Marina an important component of the town of Frisco's activity center. 85% of the town's revenues are generated from sales tax. We have seen revenues the summer of 2002 are down over 50%. We feel that that is as a result of the low water levels in the reservoir this year. The headwater communities have worked well, I believe, with the Denver Water Board in the past, but the water resource is a finite resource, and we would hope that the Front Range and Denver Water Board would work with the headwater communities so that in the future we can maintain what we have here.
The reduction of water flow from Transmountain diversions causes several problems for Colorado's headwater communities. For example, in several areas, heavy metals seep from abandoned mines into nearby streams, creating a toxic environment for aquatic life. In other areas, sediment smothers aquatic life without the benefit of spring runoff and its flushing flows. Clean water taken by diversions out of the stream can amplify these problems by reducing the dilution or the flushing of these pollutants. As water quality is reduced by diversions, the stream ecosystem suffers and potential remedial opportunities are confounded.
Well, the cleanup of these areas with abandoned mines such as this, there's probably over 200 abandoned mine sites in the Peru Creek. It's very difficult to be able to treat the metals, to precipitate them out, and then to actually maintain the ponds and other treatment facilities to remove the sludge from them is very resource intensive and very expensive. Well, many of the mining areas that have the metals pollution are located in very high elevation headwaters areas where in turn water is diverted for various water sources, and it affects the ability of wetlands and other stream functions to keep taking good clean water out of the headwater areas. And removing greater and greater amounts of that clean water from these systems have a number of adverse impacts on the citizens in the areas as well as the ecosystem that it protects.
Small towns continue to spend more to upgrade their wastewater treatment plants to deal with reduced stream flows.
The plant has cost quite a bit more because of lower flows in the Fraser River. We've had to do more removal than what would, I guess, normally be required if we had natural flows in the river. Basically, the solution to pollution is dilution. If you've got more water in the stream, then your treatment train doesn't have to be near as big. If we had 60% more water in the Fraser River, we would probably still have to build a treatment plant, but we wouldn't have to build as big of a treatment plant. It all comes down to size of basins and concrete and money. It comes down to money.
Further downstream, ranchers, fishermen, and others feel the pressure of diversions, especially during low water years.
There are impacts to me as a landowner in regard to the way the flows are being regulated in the river in front of our house. We've lost positive pressure at our ditch heads. And without positive pressure at the ditch heads, we've got to go out in the river with heavy equipment and dig it up, berming the river significantly to divert water to our ditch heads so we can irrigate our hay. There's even more difficulty than just hay growing. In the fall, flows are cut back even further, and the normal pattern after we put up our hay would be to re-irrigate and then lease for fall grazing. It's very difficult to make money at it, so anything that impacts the equation has a significant impact, and losing the fall grazing is my fudge money for the year. So if I have a piece of equipment go down or need to make repairs, I rely on my fall grazing to make up that deficit. If we're not able to irrigate and if we're not able to graze, we'll not be able to show a profit for this piece of property. The fishing lease for my property was valued by the Rocky Mountain Angling Club at $20,000 a year, which is double what the hay production is worth. The fish in the river are stressed because of low flows and poor oxygenation. If you hook and release a fish, you can watch it struggle and sometimes turn belly up and float to the bottom. And so for that reason, we've not allowed fishing in our section of the river for the last 2 years. And so the intrinsic value that we've invested and that we have there is completely tied up in the viability of the river and the watershed.
Often the effects of major out-of-basin diversions are not fully understood. For the upper Roaring Fork Valley, a key issue is the timing of the diversion.
Most of Colorado's water comes from snowmelt. Some water comes from rainfall, but the vast majority of it is snowmelt. And that water is stored typically in man-made reservoirs. What we have here is a natural reservoir that occurred over geologic time. And this reservoir provides a substantial amount of water to the citizens of Aspen for their water supply from their wells and to downstream users, including fish habitat. This is unique because floodwaters come down this alluvial valley from snowmelt in the summertime and flood this area. And when it does flood, it recharges the alluvial aquifer. During most years, the majority of the peak runoff that occurs in this alluvial valley is diverted to the Front Range. The timing of that diversion is critically important to this wetland area and to water use downstream. Colorado does not have unlimited water. It's important that the Front Range and the Western Slope communities cooperate with each other on the amount of water that's taken and the timing of those diversions.
Available water for a given year is based on how much snow falls the year before. Runoff from snow accounts for up to 85% of Colorado's water supply. Summer rains cannot make up the deficit from a low snow year. When stream flows are low, the amount of water diverted to the Front Range is actually more because irrigation demands go up in dry years. Demand for water will increase with a growing population. The supply will not. New water projects need to be located where there's adequate water to justify their development.
The beauty of this reservoir is that it was a joint venture between the folks on the Front Range and the folks on the Western Slope. This reservoir, which is now 2,000 acre-feet, could be 10 or 15 times as large. I would say that it is a tremendous win-win in phase one. It's going to be a win-win as we go forward. Vail Resorts, the majority shareholder, is assured that it has water for snowmaking. The constituents in Eagle County are assured that they have the ability to keep the river healthy, and the Front Range is in Colorado Springs and Aurora are guaranteed that when they have the need, there's a bucket up here that can be filled.
Much of the water for Front Range use comes from diversions out of the Colorado River headwaters. These existing diversions can take considerably more water with no additional approvals or projects. Increased east slope water use decreases the quality of life and environment in the headwaters region. When considering future water supply options and policy decisions regarding water, please consider these impacts to the headwater communities.